My experience tells me that amazing individuals come from the most challenging circumstances. We're not searching at Harvard, Princeton, Yale. We going in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We're trying to introduce people to, I'm just going to go extreme.
Yeah.
The symphony, the Cleveland Orchestra. What does that matter? But you might have been born to give that gift to the world. And how will you know that you can play? We support other nonprofits doing work in the community. So raise money and give it away. That's something that can make an impact.
Somebody might see this and be like, man, I'm about to go create a nonprofit.
Uh-oh.
Right?
Uh-oh.
This is the Keepin It Cleveland podcast.
Today's episode focuses on a story of true community empowerment and transformation and the importance of creating pathways for growth and opportunity. I'm thrilled to welcome Cecil Lipscomb, Executive Director of the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, a man whose dedication to service has changed lives and inspired future generations. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Isaac, for having me. President and CEO at this point now.
Oh, your role change?
We elevated.
Wow, it's been on your months.
No,
or two.
So we did this. I go by either. Don't matter,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Chief cook and bottle washer. But no, we made a conscious decision to make certain that the role spoke to the actual work, the level of work we do, so that when I'm long gone, that the organization will be in a place to attract the caliber of person to take that on. So nothing to get any executive directors out there, but that typically has a connotation of a smaller organization, and we're growing.
Okay.
And so president and CEO is...
It's more fitting. It's more fitting. All right, cool. I remember our conversation before today, and we talked about, I shared a little bit about myself, and you did the same, and I felt like before we go into UBF, I wanted to kind of dive into your story a little bit, right? Yeah. And some things that stood out to me. After I shared a little bit about my story, you talked to me about, and I hope you remember.
Oh yeah, I remember your story.
You talked to me a little bit about living to polish the diamonds of our community. Mm-hmm. You remember that a little bit?
And you were a diamond.
Can we dive into that?
Yeah, please.
So what did you mean when you said polishing the diamonds?
My experience tells me that amazing individuals come from the most challenging of circumstances. And if we don't pursue people within challenging circumstances, how do we, as a country, as a world, find those things in people that ultimately have, and selfishly speaking, outcomes that will impact our lives? Mm. Some of the communities that I service are doing things where we're trying to introduce people to, I'm just going to go extreme.
Yeah.
The symphony, the Cleveland Orchestra. What does that matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we going in the neighborhood
and
trying to find people to go play a piano? Well, Mozart impacted the world, right? But if you live in a street that every house, no house has a piano, how will you know that you can play?
That's good.
Right?
That's good.
So that's an extreme because, hey, I'm trying to eat. I'm trying to worry about how I'm going to be safe, getting to school and back home. But now you're trying to introduce me to what? A piano? Right, music? That's but you might have been born to give that gift to the world. And so what I was saying to you, given your background and to, I think, your father, husband, and that's a first in your family. Mm-hmm. And you didn't come from the best of cities or parts of the city.
Correct.
That's what you shared with me.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I'm like, look at you though. You got this is what I'm talking about, where this platform could actually change the world, could change our city.
Mm-hmm. That's
and so
the intention.
Right. And so if you didn't have this expertise in marketing and web, all of these things, social, then how did you come to the point where you said, I'm fearlessly going to go down this route for my career? And so we can lane that across many different categories. I'm talking about people who have developed vaccines in a controversial way. The vaccines for the pandemic. It's a sister. I know a sister out of Atlanta who has, I'm going to call it the health technology. She won't use the term cure, but to address cancer. Okay? That's out of our community, the black community. So if we're not searching, if we're only searching at Harvard, Princeton, Yale,
That's good.
who has a smaller now, especially entry level of people coming in to get higher education on those platforms, where do we have to go? Howard, Hampton. Let's go get it and put our children through our own polishing business, our own level of expanding their gifts and talents and skills. That's what I meant.
Okay. Completely understand that now. So you polishing diamonds. As I can remember, you were from, don't tell me, Richmond, Virginia.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Something that I thought that stood out, which it shouldn't, but it did. The fact that you grew up in a 2-family household, right? However, you stayed in the hood. But you was talking to me about how your dad and a role that he played as far as making sure that your house didn't look like it, right? And you talked to me about how the kids on the block standing around working and doing things like that, and how he like, hey, no, come over here and paint. Can you talk a little bit about the role that he played in that community of him polishing you guys up even as kids?
Yeah, I spoke and speak on that because it feels like it's a unicorn moment for a lot of people, which to me it wasn't. Right? Like I grew up with my father, both my father and mother, actively involved in my life. And they're still together, right? Enjoying life. Got Persian rugs in their house. They moved because they said, oh, no, this neighborhood's getting too violent. Just before I went to, I would say maybe 2 years before I went to college, they saw me at a point at that age when young boys become 16, 17, you can go down the wrong path. But I said, man, I cannot change to go to high schools because where they moved to, the kids, I'm like, I have nothing in common with those kids. Yeah. And ultimately, and it was black kids in that community as well. But I still had nothing in common with those kids. To a certain degree, I had and still have survivor's guilt. I talk about that because the kids that didn't have all of the assets that now I recognize I had struggled a little bit more in the same neighborhood, right? So I kept all my friends from the old neighborhood. They all came out to the new spot. But what my father was, to make your point clear, when we would come home and dudes were standing around on the block, he'd be like, hey, disband. What? Wait. They say, man, we ain't doing nothing.
So he had that respect.
That's the point.
Yeah,
disband
exactly.
and go do something. And then when they needed something to do, he was the coach of the football team. He was the coach of the baseball team. He wasn't just – so when a family with a single mom had issues, they would call, hey, my son's not doing right.
I don't remember you telling me he was the coach.
Yeah, he's the coach too. So, hey, I want him on your team because he's getting in trouble in school. He's running around the street. And so, all right, son, come with me. And I got to go meet one of the toughest kids in the neighborhood because his parent is talking to my father, to try and get them on the right path. So this is, and shout out to Montezuma Gardens in Richmond, Virginia. It wasn't the inner city. It wasn't, it was like, I would imagine it's like a Warrensville here. It's like a Warrensville Heights here that you could walk to the inner city because it's next door. So who did I play football against? Who did we play?
Right,
my grandmother lived a mile and a half, maybe by the crow flies, as they say, from my house. And the projects was around my grandmother's house over there, right? So this is literally a mile and a half away. So when I had no context of this side of the railroad tracks and that side of the railroad tracks. We was all together.
When you guys moved around 16, you was around 16 years old, I believe.
Yeah.
But when you moved, 5 families went with you, right? 5 families who I guess was influenced by your family, however. But y'all moved to where y'all moved to, I'm assuming a better neighborhood, better community. You went to the same school, right? Yeah. You still had the same friends. And those friends were now being exposed to your new neighborhood, although they lived in the old neighborhood. I'm thinking about that exposure, like the impact that exposure has on our youth when we don't know anything outside of our 5-block radius.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, so and my wife, my current wife today, is one of those families that came over. So
y'all had created a whole little utopia.
That was the girl next door, and now I'm married to the girl next door. What's that about?
Wow.
But yeah, so here's the thing. There was information sharing. And I'm going to say it this way. Back when I grew up, let's call it, I was born in 1971. I'm 52 years old. And so I literally didn't understand how society moved. I don't think some people totally understand that now, and I have a tough time. So when decisions are made or information is obtained, it's shared quietly in some cases. And so I was just telling somebody yesterday, back in the 80s, everybody started buying Volvos, the white community. Why is everybody buying Volvos? They bought in a block Volvos around the country, okay? Now, maybe they own shares of that Volvo stock. Maybe they all went collectively and got a deal or a discount. But that was information that wasn't pronounced. There weren't conferences. There wasn't.
Yeah.
And so what happens is when you share information that is beneficial, then you help other community members to benefit as well. What we do, Crabs in a Barrel, a lot of times is like, yo, I'm gonna hit them over the head with this. They not
Keep it to myself.
Keep it to myself.
Yeah.
I look good. Nobody knows the benefits that you received totally or how you receive those benefits. So then it's a selfish move. And so when those families moved, I was young. I probably, like you said, 15, 16, when those decisions were made, I don't know if they was talking together or not. All I know is in the old neighborhood, when white construction workers start bringing in houses, they call them prefab houses, all of the men in that neighborhood, Montezuma Gardens, went and started giving the construction workers the business. When Shell, back in the day, apartheid supporters, when Shell gas station supported apartheid, all of the men collectively in that neighborhood had their families support the actual boycott of Shell, that Shell closed down. Okay, so this is the sharing of information. It doesn't have to be loud, and it can be on the block. So when my parents ultimately found the benefit of this new space, all of those families was like, oh, now maybe 30 was told, and only 5 could go. I don't know. Maybe some didn't want to leave. Maybe said some had the mindset of, I'm going to stay back and I'm going to be a beacon here. That's cool. That's great. But maybe they didn't have a son that was at risk of making some bad choices and impacting their life in the wrong way.
That's good. That's good. I don't recall completely, but you did a lot of traveling, too, when you was younger. Connect the dots for me of how you ended up to Cleveland. What's that story? Didn't you go to New York, too?
No, I
not New York?
I never lived in New York. I spent a lot of time in New York.
Okay.
Here. I got a lot of family in New York. And that was the old way. In down south, when you had family that moved to the north and ultimately had the benefits of the north, they had children and grandchildren, but they wanted to get that southern value. So what it was an exchange of children during the summers. So my grandfather or my aunts, they would go to the north, get that city experience, get the exposure to open up your mind, and then the kids from the north would come down south, and you learn how to grow stuff and skin stuff and
Midwest. I know we in the Midwest, but that was my story though. I would go Mississippi and Chicago was where my family from.
That's the old way.
Picking peas, catching chickens.
They call them snapping peas, bro.
I mean, snapping peas.
Come on,
I got pictures where I'm sitting there yelling, and it's chickens around me, and I got the peas in my hand, scared. So I resonate with that.
That's exposure, right? So then on top of that, my father and mother, my father was a laborer. He worked for Nabisco, right, in the oven, 120 degrees every day. He worked 6 days a week. That extra day was to put me and my sister in college. My mother was an accountant. She worked for the Christian Children's Fund, which was a nonprofit they had during the Ethiopian famine.
So you was exposed to opportunity even through your parents, seeing what they did.
Yeah, for sure. My first internship was in Nabisco because my dad had respect because of how he was a baker. They said, he said, my son needs exposure. Boom. That's how that's the game, right? If you have access to information, you share it with other families. If you have exposure to things that can benefit your family, take advantage of it and get the next generation a leg up. So, but during the midst of all of that, we traveled for fun. Now, a lot of people can't do that. But I thought it was like terrible because we had to drive. Airport.
Yeah. When you used to it, you don't always see the value in it right away.
Right, because it's like, wait a minute. From Virginia on the East Coast, the Eastern Seaboard, we drive into Oklahoma. and this is supposed to be fun. We drove to, my sister got married, and we drove her 4-cylinder Escort to Nebraska from Virginia. And that's supposed to be fun. No AC.
Right, that sounds crazy.
That sounds crazy.
And
right?
hot.
But what I got to see was passing through, they took different routes, and we had different stops. And so I got to go to Champaign, Illinois, just to see. I started going through other parts of the country. They said, oh, you can get your driver's license at 14 or 13 here. Why? Because they could drive tractors. And it's like, man, this is crazy. I could drive here if I lived here.
Right.
Just that information, a pass through.
Powerful.
Powerful. And so we've, as a family, continued to vacation. Now I'm blessed enough to be able to take my mom and dad on a cruise. We just got back from Curacao and Bonaire and Aruba, and that was my wife and I blessing them for the years and experience.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Fast forward, UBF.
Yes, sir.
How we get here?
I was a corporate dude, right? And cell phones, selling these, the technology. This was when it was ugly, though. It was bag phones, and your portable handheld could be a weapon. And so basically, I moved here because this was the headquarters. Cleveland was the headquarters for our region. And I worked in a variety of spaces within that, but I didn't finish my education. I was making money, doing great. Had, like, houses, okay? But I didn't have an education. So I started going for opportunities that were above my education grade. Not my knowledge grade. Above it was glass ceiling, was what they call it, right? And so I said, let me go back to school, take it off the table, right? I'm going to take it off the table.
Make it not an issue.
This is not an excuse to give me this job. And so I went to school and finished up at Ursuline College here, undergrad. I then went over to Case because I said, you know what, I'm a overachiever. I'm going to kill it. Let me go to Case. I went to Case and got a MBA. And then on top of that, my mother, my grandparents, they all were community-minded, right? And so I said, you know what, I'm going to go and get a certification in nonprofit. Yeah, I see them
everything.
Take care of people, literally take care of people, not selfish at all. I have people from around the world staying at our house because of where my mom worked. And it's amazing how your environment influences you. Sometimes you got to overcome your environment because you don't have a positive example, right? So you got to say, okay, this is what I don't want to be.
Yep.
But I had the fortunate benefit of saying, maybe this is something I could consider. Got my certification from Case, Mandel School of Nonprofit. And so now I have options. I have more options. I don't have to just go and get that extra job in the cell phone business. I said, well, maybe I want to be an executive or something over here. So I went to work at the Cleveland Clinic Foundation, and I raised money for them. Throwing in my travel, I got to travel all around the world, all around the country, and ask people for money. Cake.
You was good at it.
Cake. I was decent at it.
You was decent?
It was cake for me because I got to see the hood, like literally go to L.A., go to Compton.
Right. You getting paid to just travel the world.
Go to Compton, see how my people are living there, put that battery in my back, let that be a motivation. Go to Rodeo Drive, ask somebody for $1 million. Okay.
That don't sound like decent.
So here's a motivation. I'm constantly keeping this thing in mind that my people are struggling around the country, but I have this person that I'm sitting with that has millions of dollars that can help people that are sick.
How do we connect?
So forth. And so bottom line is I raised money for Case Western, my alma mater, and then I came over to Cleveland Clinic, raised money, and then I said, all right, I got enough information, I have enough understanding, I need to go help my community directly, and that's what put me at UBF. An opportunity came in front of me, and I took it because I had enough of a foundation and experience and education at that point to step up.
So for those that don't know, when we say UBF, we're talking about United Black Fund. Can you just tell the people a little bit about what is the United Black Fund? What is the purpose of it? What are y'all doing out there in our community? Yeah. So
this United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland is a nonprofit organization, a 501c3. We raise money and give it away. Now, think about it. We raise money and give it away. that don't even make good business sense. Right?
Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
So we support other nonprofits doing work in the community. So if there are other 501c3s that are creating programming in any particular way, whether it be schools or, rape crisis center or you name it, we have a kind of a touch point where we raise money, have a grant cycle. Those people apply for funds, and we give them money. Our money is not like Cleveland Foundation money. I just shout out to Cleveland Foundation. Our money is small. We have probably about $500,000 we give away a year. Small, that $500,000 is not, that's something that can make an impact.
For sure.
Especially if we've been doing it
For sure.
for 40 years.
Yeah.
Right? So we're consistently trying to improve how we engage the community. I guess last year was the first time we actually have a second grant cycle, and that grant cycle is basically our Thrive grant. Let's call it violence prevention.
Okay.
Focused in the space of we give away $25,000 grants on those. So the normal grant cycle is a max at $10,000. We give away 20, 30, 40 grants of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have about 4 grants we give away at $25K apiece. Mm-hmm. And then just recently announced, we took over the police commission's grant process.
Okay. Congrats on that.
Thank you. So that's about another $800K that we're going to give away to folks that are doing work in terms of violence prevention and the relationships with
Talk about
police.
impact.
Yeah. So impact is the only reason why you're giving away the money.
Right.
So if you're improving the quality of life of youth, if you are putting together food programs that where people are not receiving the right amount of nourishment and substance, we support that.
Are we talking about residential families? What are we talking about?
So in essence, if you have, example, I'm going to just give you this is a while ago, the food bank.
Mm-hmm.
Food bank is huge.
Yeah.
What is my little money, $20,000 going into the food bank going to do? Mm-hmm. They have millions of dollars that they give away on a regular basis. But guess what? The reality is that the food bank had a backpack program that kids could take food home over the weekends. Because you're getting your lunch meals, you're getting breakfast at school 5 days a week. Well, there's 7 days in a week. Mm-hmm. So 2 days, all right, we'll buy the backpacks.
The partnership, collaboration.
Yeah. So the small stuff. So at this point, you think, all right, St. Martin de Porres, I'm just going back old stuff. St. Martin de Porres has a program where the kids are actually working on internships to, basically earn their free education. St. Martin de Porres has a job program that's connected to their school. Well, all right, how do kids get into the work?
Right.
All right, we'll pay for the cab fees or the bus fares or whatever. That's the kind of thing that for us, we know that our grants oftentimes are smaller, but we strategically want to position ourselves
for the most impact too.
For the most impact on how the maybe it's the filling in the gaps, Yep. So the way my college professor shared with me, she said the government is the foundation of if society is a building, the government is the foundation of that building. Corporations are the bricks, like what we see in this room. Mm-hmm. But the mortar, that's nonprofit.
Holding it all together. Yeah.
See, because government is not efficient in any way or form. Like I'm gonna be critical of government. So they say, all right, you know what? We recognize our limitations. We got to go through policies. We got to go through so much red tape to get something done. So what we do, government gives tax breaks to individuals who give money to charities, so that we don't have to do it. They actually give you a tax break if you give money to me as a 501c3, so you can write it off on your taxes and get that money back. Because they don't want to have to do it in-house. Mm-hmm. So they give it to an organization that's more efficient at the process, so that it can be done in a way that benefits society. Hence why we now are supporting the police commission's grant cycle. We do grants. Mm-hmm. Why should the government take that on? Mm-hmm. Right? So that's the impact.
I was thinking somebody might see this and be like, man, I'm about to go create a nonprofit. Right? So it's like, I'm about to go get me some of that money, get some of that grant money, create a nonprofit, right? I want to touch on this a little bit.
Legit or are they hustling?
They watch this video and they like, man, it's some money there.
It's some money. It's some money out there. Okay.
Can we talk about
some money out there? All right.
What is it? 17,000 nonprofits in Cuyahoga County alone?
Yeah, just alone. This is like the birthplace of like community chest. Cuyahoga County is like rich with nonprofits. It's a sector.
Yeah.
So it's like an industry here, right? And so, like, I'm not going to discourage someone who has a great vision and a heart for the community, people, to actually go out and do something that's impactful. Do not want to discourage.
Pros and cons, though, right?
Definitely. But most of the time, when you got 17,000 competing against you, it's extremely tough for you as an entrepreneur to say, all right, I'm going to go do that. Because you're an entrepreneur. You want to start a business, go start a business. Right? You want to be a nonprofit executive, you have to have that heart first for the people. I'm saying there's not a lot of money in nonprofit. I'm going to say it that way. Okay? Let me say it again. There's not a lot of money. You can make more money in business than you can in nonprofit. It's just par for the course. Now, there are funds that you can generate if you want to make impact that will be enough to sustain a good quality of life for you and your family and make impact. But if you out trying to get the bag, go get the bag.
Yeah.
Go get the bag.
Go start a business.
Go start a business.
Right.
Right? So now with that being said, I encourage collaborations. I encourage participation with other nonprofits because most often, if you're thinking of something, it already exists. Right? If you're thinking to do something.
And why be spread so thin?
Because there are only a certain amount of funding sources available. So I would just say, really think through your decision process. But if you truly see I saw a video the other day that said if you want to create something of value, create a service that you yourself needed. Okay?
That's a good place to start.
Yeah. And so I believe that there's a lot of nonprofits, but there's a whole bunch of people that need help. And so in all sincerity, if your heart is in the right place and your mind has the capability to conduct this thing, then go ahead and do it. But know that the road is, it's a great corrector. Like your experience will be very challenging if you come at this the wrong way. And I ain't saying that it's providential, but God don't like ugly is what I was taught, right? So if your heart ain't right and you start this work, then it come back to bite you.
Man, that's good. That's good. Keepin' It Cleveland is the name of the podcast.
Love it.
What I love to do on this podcast is ask each and every one of our individuals, what does it mean to them to keep it Cleveland? You being a transplant to the community, what does it mean to you?
I think I told you this. I hope it's not too long. All right, so Richmond, Virginia was born, right? It was the murder capital of the country. Okay, I'm going to say it that way. Like this place was 90s. I was coming of age, 80, 88, 89. It was the height of the crack epidemic. And then as a man, I moved to Cleveland. It's a little gritty. It's a little grimy, right? It ain't the D, but it's like it felt very familiar. It felt very familiar. And so it took me back to my childhood. Cleveland produced a person. His name was Charles Oakley. Charles Oakley's from Cleveland. Charles Oakley moved for college to Richmond, Virginia as a superstar basketball guy, right? Charles Oakley was my coach. I used to walk. I used to go to the projects, catch the bus from my grandmother's house, walk from my grandmother's house, go to the projects, be on the bus with the kids, go straight to Virginia Union, and Charles Oakley was my coach.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Now Charles Oakley, if you really know, he'll fight you. Okay. On the basketball course, he would get buckets. He was very consistent, but nobody you can ask, you can look on and search any Charles Oakley stories online, and it's like crazy. So Charles would say, yo, y'all stop pushing each other. First day of practice, people woofing at each other. Boom, go around the gym. We fighting in the back of the gym.
Crazy.
3 days in a row, people fighting. It's like a game. It's like, what is going on? And so I look and say that if Cleveland and Richmond, Virginia had a baby, it would be Charles Oakley. Like this was what I was birthed in. So keeping it Cleveland is keeping it okie doke to me, because Charles Oakley has this food truck now, going around the country, helping feed people. It's that heart, it's that spirit. But he'll still, at I don't know, maybe Charles is like 60-some years old. He'll still fight you. Like that is what Cleveland is. It has this heart for people. It has excellence, because you can't get to the NBA without having that superpower, right? So Cleveland has this potential and this superpower, and it comes from the people, and it feels very much like black. Feels very much like home to me, right? So, and I don't know if it's that, like your childhood, you said you went down south and people got that, I think it was a straight line to Alabama from here. So that Alabama route coming up north and surviving in the city. But we are now, Cleveland has the potential to open up that spirit of grit to new levels in technology, to new levels in industry. Yeah. So we're creating. I'm a part of a lot of initiatives. I know that we're creating a space for this next generation. Yeah. Considering all that's going on around the country right now, of excellence, right, and that's keeping it Cleveland.
That's what we need. That's what we need. Yeah. So yeah, like this whole podcast is all about highlighting the change makers, the movers, the shakers, the people that are actually creating some type of positive change in our community. When you think of that, besides yourself, if you was to speak to one person, one guest, one person, organization, business, whatever it may be, off the top of your head, who you think would be a good person to come on here and talk about what it is that they do?
Well, I mean, I literally just saw Tony Richardson across the hall. That's the gun.
You got to educate me.
Oh, Tony Richardson is the black man that runs the Gun Foundation.
Okay.
Tony, you can't be no more Cleveland than Tony. His story, I'm not even going to spoil it, but him coming on here, y'all will be blown away. This dude, man, his story, and he's over one of the top, the biggest, largest foundations in the country, and we don't know him. Because he's quiet and he makes moves.
We got to get to know him, y'all.
On a national level. So he's right across the hall right now.
Yeah, we got to get to know him.
Trey Johnson, that's his guy that's over there, young professional that's like moving and shaking over there. Trey would be a great person. And then, we have sisters like Taliandre Thomas, who was the COO of Jumpstart, but now she's doing some consulting work here. Okay. We have some amazing people in Cleveland. Yeah. And then shout out to Tim Tramble. Tim Tramble, if you haven't heard, Tim Tramble is the CEO for the St. Luke's Foundation.
Nope, not familiar.
But guess what? His brother, Tim, is building the block on his street. He lives near Caramoo. He's building housing out of his own pocket, multi-unit family homes, all up and down his own street.
Man, yeah, we got to get to know those people.
Yeah, I got you. Let me know and I'll make the call.
For sure. Well, thank you for coming on to this podcast, man. I really want our listeners to be encouraged, to be inspired, and to be a part of change, most importantly, So thanks for coming on to the podcast.
My pleasure, Isaac, and I thank you so much. And much success to you and all that you're doing. I love your professionalism and the impact that you're making in providing the information. You're a polished diamond, my brother.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Appreciate it.
God bless.
And thank y'all for listening in. That was the Keepin It Cleveland podcast. We'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.